main tab. We're going to bypass this though, and also bypass the reports tab, which is also useful, and get right to goals for this third one. That one is what we're going to focus on, and that one is the newest piece of this output. So you may or may not have seen it. In either case, we're glad to have you with us to explore it today.
Well, it's working. All the other agents.
Hi, I'm BJ.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and go here to the goal settings. This will take you to the Kelly guide. And we'll just want to make sure we have our 2020 goals selected. And then we'll go ahead and get started. And this is just kind of giving you a little brief synopsis of getting started and what you should expect. In case you want to review it, you can go ahead and go here. And then this is kind of where you're going into and you're starting to set those goals. And from here, from your first tab, you'll go ahead and set your annual profit goals for the year. And that will be for the 2020 year. And then you'll just want to fill out this information. And again, it's a very helpful guide that you can follow through. We also have little tooltips in case you're wondering, what do I enter here? You can just hover over that little eye icon and review what you should enter into that field, that selected field.
And by default, these numbers are populating here, but these are just placeholders based on either MRAA2 or just what JWRI has felt is a suitable number there in the absence of something better. So if you know something for your team or for yourself that is more accurate, for like what your actual average commission is, you can certainly put that in. That's definitely what you would want to do instead of using a number that doesn't reflect your own business. Put anything in that you do know. And maybe it's 100% listings and 0% buyers for you, but whatever that is, this is here for you to edit and modify and make your own. And if you have any questions as you go, those eye icons, those tooltips are there to illustrate what they're for. If maybe operating expenses isn't a term you're familiar with, or cost of sales and how that's different from operating expenses is something you're not clear on, that's what those are for. So if you hover over one of those, again, just to reiterate this, again, they all have those, and those are all quite useful. So I would definitely hover over them. Even if you do know what they are, just to make sure that you're filling in the right thing in the right place. And otherwise, you can see that what we're putting in on this right side for annual profit goals is reflected in the chart. So you can see that as we make changes, it's reflected visually. So we can see what our annual profit goal is, we can see what our costs are, we can see what our operating expenses are, and we can see the balance of our business also. So this is a good way to get a handle on this estimated GCI per month you see here that's depicted visually. And this should be a pretty quick process if you do know these numbers already. If you don't exactly know what the operating expenses are, you can make a good guess. Typically, 30% is something I've heard people use before. If you happen to know what that is, put it in. Otherwise, you could use a placeholder that's there. And if anyone has any numbers they'd like to share for these things, by all means drop those in the chat also, and we'll bring those up and just discuss them in a general sense.
Yes.
Going on to the next page.
Save and continue. Okay, and again, these are our what we're setting for our conversion rates over the course of our goals. And again, if you have any questions, the tooltips really do help throughout these fields as well. And this would be a percentage of what you think the activity will turn into a lead, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, you would just enter that and change it as your business needs, or according to your business needs. And if everything looks good, you can just go ahead and
save. You'll notice that this filters down to ideally money in your pocket. This profit goal number at the bottom is what you're taking home. So you can see that it's sort of the prospecting and qualifying those leads coming in at the top, filtering down into actually making appointments and keeping appointments, and really getting into the business operations of your business. So I hope it's clear what this is depicting for you. If not, feel free to ask what it's about and we can elaborate. But the general idea is that you can either take these default numbers we have in here, which are good in a general sense, but they don't speak to your specific market or your business or your team or your neighborhoods and so forth. So update if need be. That's what they're for. But something like 3% for activities is a good number in the absence of something more accurate for you. So if you don't happen to know of a better number, I would stick with 3% that's in here by default, and same with these other numbers. something like 50 or 60% for contacts, for example, would be what I would put in. And just going down the line there.
And it looks like Gordon is a pre-tax profit. Can you kind of elaborate on that, Gordon? Are you wanting to see that, or?
No, I was just clarifying that the take-home money is pre-tax.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sure. All right, cool. And so yeah, these numbers look good. So go ahead and save and continue. And this is kind of where you can do an overall review of everything that you just inputted into that Kelly guide. You can select by either the year or the month view, depending on how you like to view it. Again, this is how it will show your average commission per unit. Kind of, again, showing the goal conversion funnel. And if you hover over it, you can also, it will highlight the section that field is pointing to within that funnel. And so everything does look good. So we'll go ahead and say what's next. And that's pretty much it for creating or setting your goals through the Kelly guide. It's fairly easy. And again, you can always use those tool tips if you have any questions, if you don't know which field or what you should enter into those fields.
Yeah, so as far as Kelly guides go, this one is pretty simple. And assuming you know those facts about your business already, it's really just a matter of typing it in, or in some cases using the placeholder information that's in there. So this is probably the easiest Kelly guide you've seen if you know those numbers. If not, then you need to kind of think through it as you go. That may add
Go
some
around
time
those so it's
and
closer
complexity to it. But even still, it should be a fairly rapid thing, a fairly
Working on it, guys.
in a short amount of time. So once we've done that, we can then go back to reports. We can do these various things here that are listed on this final page. The most useful of these options, to me anyway, is going to reports. And then seeing those goals in the context of the remainder of this year, 2019, and for 2020 for the whole calendar year. And then just seeing how that relates to these other things, the activities breakdown and so forth that's depicted visually at the bottom. So now that we've done it for 2020, you'll notice that we have content for 2019 also. So if we scroll up a little bit, we'll see that we're currently in 2020 for the full year, and we have this nice red counter here telling us when that'll start to kick in, how long we have to input those things, and how long until it starts being reality for us. So really, if you get down to a very short amount of time in there, and someone on your team hasn't done their goals yet, just conveniently remind them that this big red button is there to light the way. So we can also see that 2019 is in here, and we know that there's activity going on this year. We didn't start doing things related to our real estate business in November. So you can see that there'd be activities in here for things here, but as this is a test account, we don't actually have, things actually reflecting a business that makes money. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is a business to emulate, but it does show you that you have activities leading to leads, leading to contacts, and so forth. In real life, it's not quite so linear, as I'm sure all of you know, that activities in prospecting and farming and all these things that you funnel with don't necessarily lead to these things in quite such a linear fashion. But for the sake of putting it on screen and giving you something to look at and work with, this is how we've got it. If there are any questions as to what these things show or things we could elaborate on, or any questions that have come up from going through the Kelly Guide, by all means ask those. And again, like Holly said, we can view by month or by year and just see what those things look like. You notice we also see listings and buyers differentiated in here. So if you do all one and none of the other, or the opposite way, you do all of say, buyers and none of listings, you'll notice that changes the color that displays on this radial or this circle right here. Do you want to walk through some of these things down here?
Sure. So here we'll have the activities breakdown, and this is kind of correlates with this question that Anonymous asked us. How does it know what activities you're doing? Where is that entered? So this would be the activities that are broken down that are from your contact record. So anything that you want to track, you'll always want to add that as an activity on your contact record. So that way it will appear into your percentages of your goals for that activity. And again, you can switch that from, if you'd rather have more percentage value, you like to read it that way, you can switch it to the percentage value, or if you'd rather have non-percentage, then you can do it that way. The goal conversion rates, this kind of does the same thing. It just shows you what you're converting depending on which goal that you have selected, and that's based off of that percentage that you filled out within that Kelly guide. And then again, just triples down, showing you all the way down to the close units of those goals. And then on this side, you'll have the GCR goal breakdown, and you can hover over these as well. That way you kind of get a clear explanation of what each of these colors for the graph mean. So this would be more of your profit goal, and that was what you selected as your 50% for your goal. And then along with your operating expenses and your cost of sales. And this, again, you can filter by the month or the year, depending on how you want to view it, and go based off of your percentage, or if you'd rather have that dollar amount. Totally up to you. And again, this is just estimated based off of what you entered for your goals.
Yeah, you can see in the middle there, underneath 93% estimated year to date, it says based on opportunities there in small text, in parentheses. So to just keep in mind where all this is coming from and what's feeding it, it's all opportunities, except for the activities part, which is coming from contacts. So you can think of these three applications or applets working together: contacts, opportunities, and reporting. And they're going to display information here based on what's happening in the other two. So activities is going to show, in other words, touches or interactions with your contacts or your leads in contacts, the application. And then you're going to see that reflected here. And then as you get into leads, contacts, appointments set and kept, and the rest, that's coming from the opportunities applet. And that's pretty simple, I think, to understand where that's coming from. You have phases and opportunities that show where somebody is in the course of a transaction, or maybe how far away they are, and then that's reflected here. So if there are any questions as to how that works, by all means ask those. Is there a question coming in?
Brian, how can you add in things like open houses or door knocking into your activities?
That's a good question, and the application here is definitely not fully formed yet. So we will be adding things as we go, but you can think of all the activities and contacts that you have available there as feeding into this. So things like emails or text messages, SMS messages, or phone calls, or events, etc. All the things listed there. Open house isn't really something that is quite here yet, because we're going to have a separate open house application. Not quite like an applet in here on the left side of command, but a separate way of doing that you don't quite see yet. So how exactly that's going to feed into reporting, I think is not fully decided yet, but it's definitely going to be reflected in the activities breakdown, because that would certainly be an interaction or a touch with someone.
If you're my activities breakdown, it's all black on the right side. Why? And that's from anonymous. So if you're seeing in all black, you may have your 2020 goal selected. This is kind of what you're seeing right now, or it could be that we'll go back to the 2019. It could be also that you just don't have any activities logged onto your contacts. If you haven't really added maybe a contact to a smart plan, that will log that activity, so that way you'll see those colors onto the pie chart. It just depends on which view you're looking at. And if you have added activities to your contact and you're still seeing that black screen and you're under your 2019 goals, go ahead and let support know so we can take a look at that. And that will be actually in the question mark right here, chat with support, and then we can take a look at that.
And one more thing to note on this is that we didn't set goals for 2019. What we did is set goals for 2020, for the full calendar year. And what this applet is doing behind the scenes is basically just prorating that for the remainder of this year. So we input X number of activities, X number of contacts, and so forth for all of the 12 months of 2020. And given how much time is left in this year, Command is just basically doing that for you. So that's why you see things that are showing up here when we're in 2019, even though we didn't actually calculate it. You can see there are these two things here, but you'll also notice this little pop-up that says it's a lab, essentially, for 2019. Really, for 2020, this is when it kicks into high gear. You're going to be doing the full year, the full 12 months. That black thing that I think you may have been referring to that Holly pointed out is useful for showing you the activities that feed into this. So returning to that previous question, here's where this is coming from. Once you start having it, it looks a little bit prettier. But in the meantime, you can at least see, even though it has 0 next to it, you can see the different things that feed into it. So notes and favorited listing and so forth. So that is still kind of useful just to hover over and see what's in there.
And then Matt has a question. Will our goal conversions learn and change as we do more activities? Etc. Just says with opportunities, the more transaction we do, the more it learns and adjusts. Yes. So that would be, once we start having more agents enter in their goals, so we can start tracking those numbers and have more realistic numbers that you see here compared to what we have now. So yes, it will learn as we enter more information into the system. And Anonymous asked, how is it tracking your operating expenses in the GCI goal breakdown?
The concern here, I think, is just connectivity or doing something once and having it be tracked. And the answer to that is that what you put into the Kelly Guide as your operating expenses is where that number is coming from. There's an existing CGI calculator tool that does not yet work with the reporting applet here with this goals tab. So you can think of this as basically standing independently. You fill out the Kelly Guide, and what you input along the way here as you go left to right is what's going to be reflected here. At the moment, this doesn't yet reflect things you're going to be doing, and it's not going to update your operating expenses in real time, kind of like what I think you're getting at with that question, Anonymous, tracking your operating expenses. So you're not so much tracking with them as inputting them and then having that for reference here. But having it be more updated and more real time is definitely the goal here.
Do we have any other questions right now? I'd love to hear your feedback or any ahas.
It's always that way.
What's that?
It's always that way.
We can pick on
Answer
Gordon because I know he's already done this. But Gordon, what was your experience like doing this Kelly Guide?
It was pretty straightforward. I think the biggest part for me that I had to make a few adjustments on was the conversion rates. You know, most of us are familiar with a handful of those every year, putting those into our business plan, but obviously activities, leads, appointments, set and kept is, broken up, whereas normally we just had one of those. So just kind of going through the percentages to make sure that the numbers work, I think was the biggest thing. Cool, that's really straightforward.
Any other questions from folks in the Match Me room or via Slido? Feel free to drop those in here. We'll spend a moment just going back to the other things that the application offers, that this reporting applet offers, just to show you how this works in conjunction with the Goals tab. So remember, that's only one of 3 tabs here. That's the most recent addition, but there's definitely a lot more going on with this applet. So if you're not yet familiar with the database health score, I would definitely check this out and try to get all of these numbers more like email right here, more of a green than a red. Red meaning you should spend some time improving it. Green meaning you're, 52% you still want to improve it, but you're at least better than half. And you want all of these ideally to be green, and you want ideally all of these to be pretty close to 100% if you can get there. So consider that a challenge to get the database health score looking like this, looking like not 14% for phone number, but let's say 88%, or let's say address is not 5%, but 95%. That's what you want to see here, and that's what you're shooting for with this, and it's really helpful in kind of a competitive way, I think, among team members to see who's got the better score on different things. And between different contacts in your database too. I've seen a lot of agents kind of treating it like a game where they're trying to get the numbers to go up by inputting more things like home anniversary. Maybe that's before command, not something that they really spend a lot of time thinking about or tracking or asking people, or birthdays or something like that. So play around with database health score. That I think is the foundation of the whole reporting applet. And then look at the activity score as well below that. So you can see how often you're reaching out to people and kind of what the schedule is, how that breaks down. So in this test account, Nicole Burton, agent, is contacting folks at this cadence, which seems kind of, well, at least that one seems okay. 90 or more days is probably something this agent would want to focus on, right? So that we have not 0% there, not 0.3% here, but maybe a 60% in the last 2 to 3 months. So I hope all of this is visually clear, and it's clear how you use it also. This lead sources part over here is also something I think people get a lot of value from. So I'd encourage you to play with this too and see how exactly this breaks down and see where this information is coming from. And you'll figure out what it all means just by looking at it and seeing maybe by cities where folks live, maybe looking at a certain time frame. And if you want to get competitive, you can toggle on this compare option and start comparing yourself to different cohorts. So maybe it's all Keller Williams agents, or maybe it's all agents in your state, or maybe it's just you trying to better yourself and your business, and you're looking at agents in the production bracket above yours. And just for reference, there are 6 that are behind the scenes there. So you'd be looking at the one just above you. So you kind of have a sense of comparable businesses and step ahead of you. Or your market center and so forth. You'll notice there's that there, but also down here. So you can compare as well your activity levels with the activity levels of other people you work with and maybe compete with. It looks like we've had a few things in Slido here, so it's not letting me enter my 2019 goals. I think that'll get back to this Kelly guide here, and you'll notice that when we go to just step 1 here, it'll be for 2020. And you're correct, there's not an option for 2019. That's because you're going to set it for the full calendar year of 2020, and it's going to effectively just be prorated for the remainder of this year.
I think it'd be helpful to go over the conversion rate bug unless that's already been resolved.
That's something that's being worked on right now. There's not a fix in there just yet. So it is something that the team is aware of. And I would hesitate to say not to go in there or something because you think that's buggy. The process works here. This Kelly guide is functional. I wouldn't really worry about the fact that there's a conversion rate issue with one of these fields relating to this down here. But I would continue to fill this out and input these numbers, and you'll see as you go along that it calculates for you. Is that a new question, or did we answer Matt's question?
No, that's an old one.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if anyone has any questions too, you can always go to our answers page and you can search for questions here. You can also find it, see we are in our report section. You can always search through here by going through the KWU panel, which will again lead you to the answers page, and you can search for any of your reporting or goal questions. You can also go to KW Connect and search on there for any of our past videos, or if you need any help with training materials, you can also look there.
Yeah, and like every live stream, this one has been recorded and will be uploaded to KW Connect. So if anybody on your team or yourself maybe at a later date want to reference it, you'll be able to do that probably tomorrow or some kind of time frame like that. But if anyone's not sure what the goals tab is all about in reporting, or they're hesitant to use it or anything like that, you'll have the answers.kw help articles that KW's put together. You'll also have this live stream. You'll also have the tooltips and the Kelly Guide itself. So there are tons of resources to help you get past any hurdles you come across. And then finally, there's also support at kw.com if you're not able to figure that out. So we appreciate your time, and we thank you for joining us today for this live stream. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.
a little different than what I expected it to be. I just made a copy of the things that, if you ever use 411 or 135 or these planning things, I think probably none of us use them enough, right?
Supposed to be working on this now.
But, so I did a business planning webinar a couple of weeks ago. And I did go into my KW. And actually went in and played around with this command thing, this whole. So let's see if I can get it in there. Because they, I think they skimmed over a few things that. Alan, you gave me BJ, right?
What?
You stepped in. That's Alan.
How you doing, Al?
Hey,
Pleasure to meet you.
BJ?
BJ Jones.
Hey,
Yes.
nice to meet you,
Nice to
BJ.
meet you.
So welcome.
Yeah. So I'm actually starting class Saturday. So
Oh.
I'm well ahead.
Oh, wow, so you don't have your...
Not yet, no, but I'm gonna
Good
get
for
it.
you.
We get it.
Good for you. And officially welcome to Florida to you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where are you coming from?
Jersey,
Where?
New Jersey,
New Jersey. Okay. Awesome.
Atlantic City area, South Jersey.
Okay. Okay.
So if you have any referrals, let me
So you just moved down before?
know. Yeah, well, yeah, technically. I've been in transition,
So Alan sold Judy her property, right?
Yeah.
Ah.
both of them.
So we all get this new command login, that agent. Are you guys going into agent.kw.com yet? I hadn't been either, but it's going from my KW. What was it? My KW.
kw.kw.com. We're not supposed to go there anymore?
Well, you can still go there, but I think they're trying.
Command.
Command is that you go into agent. What is it? Agent.kw.com is where you can sign into command.
Now, isn't there something that we need to go in there as incognito or something like incommunicado, something?
The incognito. If you know about-
Incognito's, so it's sort of, think of you know what a virtual private network is?
Yeah,
It allows you to go out and not be tracked.
yeah.
If it's the same incognito, I'm thinking
I
about.
think it is, like if you look up at that top right-hand corner.
Yeah.
One of the options here, I think, is go incognito, isn't it?
Yep.
Thought it was.
It's a good way to browse the web so that you're not getting on the tracking cookies.
Right,
It
right.
hits you with all the advertisements because you went out to a particular site.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's a good habit to get into. If you
don't see
Now,
it.
do we need to do that in order to go into command, or that's just a helpful option?
They're telling us to do it. Let me see if it's giving me that option. I was just looking to see if. I know I did it earlier. I'm not sure why it's not one of those options. Usually it was go incognito.
What was that agent.kw?
Agent.kw.com.
Oh.
And it's the same login, like when you go in, but
Yeah.
if you go in there, you'll get into command, and then you can see up here, and I went into reports, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
You go into reports, and then it'll take you to this screen, and if you go into goals, that's where you can go in and do your goal setting. So, and you have to click on that tab for goal setting, and first thing you have to do is get started. So, the first thing they tell you to do is try to figure out how much money you want to make pre-tax. So how much you're going to have to put in your pocket. So a lot of this is based on like a millionaire real estate agent book, which is, it's a net $1 million. That's the thing now. So if you use the preset category, it's going to say $1 million here, and then they have things like their operating expenses based on the MREA model is 30%. which to net $1 million, you'd have to gross 2.5 million in GCI. So these numbers are really big. They're like $750,000 in each one of these categories. So I just went through and played around like as if I was a single agent and said, okay, if I wanted to make $240,000 at the end of the year, and my average commission is probably a little higher than a lot of the agents. I think the normal commission's probably closer to between $5,000 and $6,000, like a 3% commission on a $200,000 house. But then most of the agents aren't operating at a full 3% because they're either selling some of the discount brokers' houses, or they're giving concessions up to close the deal for repairs or something like that. So the average agent is probably about somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000, I would say. But that's one of those numbers that, you know, if you've been in business long enough, you can go back and figure out what your average sales price is and have a pretty good idea what your average commission is. And you can control that too. Like a lot of people just think it's like you take what you get, but you know, if you're prospecting in one community versus another, you know, you might be able to sell higher price houses in this community than you can over here. So, which is
Stay out of the trailer parks.
yeah, I mean, really, or even like I always use Ron and Tony as a good example. Like they do a lot of transactions, but if you compare them to like Patterson Group, Patterson does about half as many transactions, but his GCI is actually higher because they probably need to work on the strategy as far as they don't have anybody like prospecting, at least to my knowledge, like in Heron Creek or Bobcat Village or Riverwood, some of the higher end. They do a lot of business in Northport, and they own Northport. There's nobody even close to them, but they'll take every deal that comes through the door, you know. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I think if they're a little more strategic in the way they prospect it, they could probably elevate their sales price. And at the end of the day, not do any more work but make more money. You know, so that's something you can control to some degree. And then the operating expenses. Well, your cost of sales, just over that, for a single agent, your cost of sales is really going to be your cap and your royalty, right? Because you don't have a buyer's agent or listing specialist working with you.
You wouldn't include things like photography and postage and printing?
They say you should do that in your operating expenses. Because I had the same question about like a transaction coordinator. Well, why wouldn't I put that here? And that was the one area that they said, well, you could, but the reason why it was explained to me that they put it, the model puts it over here, is because you can start looking at that number that you're paying out to third parties and compare it to what you have to pay to hire somebody, like an admin. And then when that number starts to get close to that point, you might decide to go ahead and hire somebody as opposed to keep outsourcing it to third parties. So so the cost of sales I put in here was $21,000, which is the cap and the royalty. And then operating expenses, I just kind of threw $100,000 out there. I don't know if there's no rhyme or reason. But if you know what your expenses are, you know, like if you are buying leads or you all pay dues, you know, if there's certain things you know you're going to be spending money on during the course of the year, then by all means, you should put it in there as accurate as you can. And then the balance of the business, I think in the example, I think it was 40 and 60, I want to say. But we always encourage our agents to try to have a balanced business 50-50. Newer agents, a lot of times you're going to start out with buyers more so, BJ, so you might, if you were going to do this, you probably, most new agents do, unless they're really purposeful about going after listings, but it's a little more scary to go after listings than it is to take buyer leads. So a lot of new agents fall into that pattern of just working with buyers for a while.
Okay.
But the reason why you don't want to really build a business long-term on that is because the listings will bring buyer leads, whereas most buyer leads, occasionally you'll get listings from a buyer lead, but not nearly as often as you'll get buyer listings from buyer leads from a listing. See what I mean?
Mhm.
And you can control your business a lot better with the listings because your time, the time you have to invest in listings is usually a lot less than what you'd have to invest with buyers. Unless you got a bunch of pain in the butt. The listings, right? So I'm going to leave it at 50-50 there. And then here's where it starts to get kind of tricky, these conversion rates. That 3% number, I'll be honest with you, when I first started looking at this, I didn't really understand where they came up with that. Basically what they're saying, out of all the things you do to try to generate leads, about 3% of your activities are going to end up in a lead, as a lead. So, you know, think about all the phone calls you make, all the emails you send out, all the postcards you might mail out, all the just face-to-face conversations that you do. And I didn't know this either, but in the business planning clinic that I read, in bold, I always thought 100 contacts a week was just a number that somebody just threw out there. It sounds like a good number. But they actually said they did it based on a 50-to-1 ratio of 100 contacts to 100 contacts should turn into 2 appointments. And I never realized that. Did you ever heard that?
Yeah.
I never knew that. I thought it was just, they just pulled it out of thin air. So if that's the case, that would really be a 2% conversion rate on your activities. So I'm surprised if what they said was correct. I'm surprised that that's not 2%.
Yeah.
And again, the higher you make that number, the better results you're going to get at the end of this thing. So if you overestimate your conversion on activities, it might skew your numbers and make it look like you don't have to do as much to get that much business.
Right.
So kind of in my mind, I'm thinking for an average, especially for a brand new agent, I probably would say, yeah, I think 2%. Based on the explanation I got about bold, I think 2% makes more sense. And then, so if 2% of your activity, or you're going to get 2% of your activities are going to turn into actual leads, and then how many of your leads are actually going to turn into a contact? So what they're talking about there is, you know, you make a phone call or you get an inquiry on realtor.com or whatever, you know, that would be a lead if somebody gave you a referral to another person, or if you got that lead from realtor.com or something. But then how many of those leads turn into an actual two-way conversation, either face-to-face or phone call. It can even be, they even talk about texting now is an acceptable thing in bold, and also Facebook. If you're having a Facebook conversation, they're saying now to count them as actual contacts. So then out of how many, so I left that 10%, that's what they had in there, I just left it at 10%. As far as leads that turn into contacts.
So the 10% leads are the conversion
Yeah.
of the leads. 10% of those are converted to a lead. All other activities.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, how many of the leads are you going to turn into an actual contact? Which
Okay.
means you're having that two-way conversation.
Yeah, I would do that 60%.
And then as your contacts, how many of them do you actually turn into appointments?
Yep.
And then from the appointment set, how many of them actually are kept?
So in that context, how do they define a contact as opposed to, I mean, what does someone have to do, or how does the relationship have to change in order to become a contact from a lead?
From a lead to a contact.
Face-to-face interactions.
Not just face-to-face, it could just a two-way communication.
Okay,
So
texting.
texting,
Okay.
Facebook, talking face-to-face, phone call, email.
Not necessarily any activity other than just communicating.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what they're talking about. So then, again, these are all things that most of us probably don't keep track of this stuff as closely as we should to make this really work for you.
Mhm.
So it's gonna take a lot of work to start thinking about how you're gonna do that. When you start getting down into like appointments, we probably, after you've been in this business long enough, you probably have a better idea like how many appointments you set, and then how many are kept. What you think.
Right.
Is there a tracking tool already developed by Keller Williams to capture each of those? So when you go on and you send out whatever and you send out whatever advertisement, you get some information back, you get in a two-way conversation, you have contacts, is there some place that you can actually document, okay, that's,
Well, it ties into your CRM, so you can put it in your CRM like notes about,
Okay.
you know, you spoke to Bob on the phone, you know, he gave you a referral to his guy he works with or whatever. How that's actually going to be tracked and then tied into this, not entirely sure
see,
yet.
that's what I'm
And
looking
it
at.
goes back to activities too, like they were saying earlier. It's still a little clunky as far as how that's going to convert into this, but you can keep track of your activities and then enter them.
That's where I'm asking, yeah. Is there
Yeah.
anything developed already where you can keep track of your activities, so you can plug those into this, or does
Yeah,
everybody
that should
kind
be
of
part of
track that on their own?
I'm sorry.
That should be part of the contact record.
Yeah, it should be part of the contact record. We'll have to look at that and see, okay, so if I put that call in my contact, there might be some kind of a box or something to check off to record it as an activity. That, I'm not sure if that's there yet, but they'll have to do something like that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Either that or we're gonna have a lot of little scraps of paper.
Yeah,
sitting on our
yeah.
desk.
Documentation.
Which is where I am right now.
Now, when you get into like the appointments and all that kind of stuff, then I think that's where you get into the opportunities. So you have a contact, and then if you have like an appointment,
Mhm.
you can kind of move the gauge to there's an opportunities they call it. So, you know, when you go into an appointment, you can classify it as maybe like a lead. And then if you get an appointment, you kind of move it further up the list. And then if the appointment's kept, you move it further up the list. So this part of the program should be working
Okay.
from where you are with your opportunities in the system. I don't know if that makes sense. It probably makes sense to you because you haven't seen that. Have you been using opportunities at all yet?
No.
Okay, so
It makes as much sense. to me.
okay, so I get a contact and I put a contact or a lead. I get a lead. I put him into the system as a lead, and then we have a two-way communication, and I can change him from a lead into a contact, and then there's like it's almost like you're moving them along the line, you know, from a lead to a closed transaction. And every step along the way, the system gauges what your percentage of likelihood of that turning into dollars is. And it'll actually assign a dollar value along the way. So you can kind of get an idea of how much money you not only made so far this year, but what your current pipeline looks and where that will take you if it stays on that track. Then, of course, if something crashes and burns, it's gonna, you gotta take it out and then it'll reset the numbers. It'll make more sense to you once you go in and start playing with the contacts and the appointments. And the opportunities, I'm sorry. But, you know, like me, I think if I set an appointment, I would say my appointments kept is probably more like 80% or higher because I don't usually set an appointment if I don't feel like it's going to turn out to be. Now, newer agents do that all the time. They'll set an appointment and not confirm it or not really nail it down, and then sometimes when they go to the appointment, people aren't there. You know, so the more experience you have, more likelihood this number is going to be a lot higher.
Oh, you don't like them?
And then, or you set an appointment and they cancel on you, you know, before you get out there, so that would be that. And then how many appointments can turn into agreements? So that would be either a buyer's agreement, a representation agreement for a buyer, or a listing agreement. So it could be either or of those things. And then how many of these turn into a contract? And then how many of those contracts close? So again, as you get better at this number should probably be higher than 60%, I would think, right?
Right.
And then this is kind of like how do you know? What do you get? You should have a pretty good idea if you're really pre-qualifying them good, that they're really serious about wanting to buy or sell something. And then, this could be, again, I think that's probably should be a higher number too.
Yeah.
Price it right,
I'm sorry.
price it right.
If you price it right, and if you have a realistic buyer, which if you set the expectations for them, then you shouldn't be wasting a lot of time. Well, they're just going to go out and lowball everything and never actually close on a deal.
Now, the context of this thing, at least in terms of setting the goals, is for a year, like you were saying, 2020.
Yeah.
Is there any effort to try to reflect that in these percentages? Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get a listing or to get it sold, or you're trying to say, all right, 60% of my listings get sold within a particular period of
That's a
time?
good point. I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, not only do I get a listing agreement, but how long does it take to sell it? Yeah, that's a really good point. You would think they'd have that factored in here, but I don't think they do yet, but it's probably something we should send to them to see if they're thinking about it.
That's a really hard
Yeah.
thing to figure out on average.
So the idea would be like, so 60% of your listings are going to sell within that year, but it'd be nice to know how soon they will, right? So this is, if you go after you put all that stuff in, then this thing calculates, it says I have to generate $361,000 of GCI to net 240. And then as the year progresses, you'll be able to, you'll be measuring where you are at any point in time throughout the year. So let me see what this is. This is a year. So this month. So then you can see what you have to do for the month to net that $20,000 for that month. And then what it'll do is if I don't make that much money in January, it's probably going to tell me I need to ramp up my activities for the balance of the year. So it's not 100% functional yet, I don't think. I mean, the goal setting's there for sure, but let's see what it says about what's next. Oh, so you can go in and review your goals. Once you set them, just going to make sure it all looks right. So down here, this is what they were talking about, that area that's the black, because there haven't been any activity there. And they're saying, so they're saying the activities that you could be doing are meetings, calls, emails, texts, smart plans, calendar events. So it could be networking or something, or open houses, notes, search neighborhood. That would probably be if you have a contact on your neighborhood search and they're actually going in and using it.
Hello, everybody.
And favorited it? Is that a word? Favorited it? Listen, yeah. So that's probably where the customer's going in and identifying a listing as one of their favorites, in the MLS. Well, in your system, because they're going to be working through command. If you set the people up in command, they should be coming back to command to look at properties. And then it'll track what they're doing. And it'll actually even tell you, Sally's been looking at, every day she logs in, it's gonna show her, or every time she logs in, it's gonna show it. So if she starts increasing her views, then the system will probably send you a note that you wanna call Sally, because she looks like somebody that's gonna buy or sell in the next 60 to 90 days, something like that.
Is this somebody hitting the website? How are we tracking that?
Ideally, you're setting them up on a landing page.
Okay.
In your computer, you could set them up. That's when they were talking about the health scores of their database. So what they found when they first started coming out with this was there was only like less than 10% of the agents had people's addresses in the system. Because everybody got used to just using phone numbers and emails. Mm-hmm. So then when they realized how much value there was in having all that stuff in there, because what happens is if you go in and set somebody up with an address, the system will actually go out and find their neighborhood on Nextdoor. You guys familiar with Nextdoor? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll go out and find their neighborhood and identify that neighborhood as theirs. And then they have the ability to go in, and it's called a landing page. They have the ability to go in and see what's going on in their neighborhood. And if they don't go in, I think at least once a month, the system will send them a reminder that they might want to go in and check out what's going on in their neighborhood. And the beauty of it is because we're using the neighborhoods from Nextdoor, it's a lot better in Zillow or Trulia or any of the other Redfin, because they're all doing it based on zip codes or cities. Right. So you get a lot more specific. And not only does it let them see like the market that's going on, what's going on with the market, it's they can go in and see local insights, they call it. So that's where, have you been doing any of that? Okay. That's where Brett was just showing me the other day, like Matt Patterson had set up a local insight for Leroy's downtown Punta Gorda. So he put like, they say the best way to do that is to have like a picture of the outside, a picture of the inside, and then a picture of your favorite dish. And then that way, if somebody goes into downtown Punta Gorda to look at houses, there's also other community insights that they can go on and learn more about the area. So the idea was, so Barry Keller realized that people were using Zillow not because the information was accurate, they were using it because it was easy, and at least it gave them a relative idea of whether the property was worth more today than it was yet last week or last year. They weren't concerned about it being 100% accurate, but then Redfin came out, and Redfin started adding all these other features to the website to make it a fuller customer experience. So then that's what he said, that's what we need to compete with. So now, you can go on there and they can go to local insights. They can apply for Keller Mortgage right there on their app. They can shop for insurance on it. There's going to be a property management feature, which nobody really understands what that's going to be. And then, I forget what else. But the nice thing about the market information that's in there is it's all from the MLS, all over the world, really. So it's not like Zillow is just taking, there's estimates, throwing some numbers out there. And the stuff that the people are looking at on our app and our landing page is actually real-time information from the MLS.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could I see you for like 30 seconds?
right now,
Kinda. What's up?
Sure. Something like 8 years. 8 or 9. I don't know, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to think about it. I don't know. I've been here doing real estate since 45, I guess. So 14 years. And I was in a Remax office, and I was a Prudential, which doesn't exist anymore. And then here for, I guess probably 8 years. 8 years. Something like that. Okay. And I've gone through a couple of these transitions from system to system. All of them get bewildered each time.
It's always good. The technology things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now were you doing real estate?
In Jersey. Yeah, I'm transitioning down.
Gotcha. Were you Keller Williams up there? Okay. Interesting.
They have the systems and the training, and as a new agent, you can't lose that.
That's what I hear. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
It's all there.
Yeah.
You know, in an atmosphere very collegial where people are willing to help you,
Sure.
answer questions, and get you going.
Sure.
They have a lot, you know, it can be overwhelming to people, but it's as much or as little as you want to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really true. And the thing is, you really have to make an effort to take advantage of it.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
great stuff.
It's
But
there for you.
Nobody's
You gotta
gonna
go
force
after it.
you to do
Yeah.
it, you know, so. But you can be successful if you really do
Apply yourself.
jump in and take advantage of all of that stuff.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to
Well,
it.
yeah, good.
Absolutely. Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
So do you have a granddaughter yet?
I'm waiting.
Okay.
She's being induced as we're here.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
All right, thanks.
She told me they just increased the dosage.
Are your daughter?
No baby yet. She's in the hospital on labor, so.
So that was, somebody called, said they were from FPNL, and that if we didn't pay their bill in 30 minutes, they were gonna be shutting down power to the building.
Scam. And I'll tell you what, those people are so good.
Yeah.
They are
Oh, I
so
can tell
good
you how good that is.
at impersonating FPL. They get you, they know, I got scammed. That's why I know. They told me if I didn't pay my bill, I was 2 months past,
Yeah, that's what they said.
and if I didn't pay it, and they knew my last 2 bills to the penny.
Wow.
They knew exactly how much, because I looked it up on their site, and it said I was paid,
Right.
the same numbers, and anyway, they get you all juiced up, and then you gotta call them back for whatever,
Yeah.
and they even hang up on you. I mean, it's just like you get lost in the wires, you're waiting, and then you get disconnected, and say, oh my God, I gotta call them back, because they say they're gonna disconnect your power in 30 minutes. And the giveaway should have been that the only way you can pay the bill is you can't go to Western Union, you can't do any of that stuff. You have to go to a store that sells what they call, oh gosh, what was it? Money card or something like that.
Like a gift card.
Yeah, it's like a gift card, and it's got a serial number on the back. And I could buy one and give money to you, give it to you, and then you could use it.
Yeah.
So you go and you buy the thing, costs $5, and then you put the money on there, and you call them back again and give them the number, and then they say, okay, everything's good. Your
That's
bill is
crazy.
good.
Yeah.
I got scammed for almost $500.
No, there are a lot of scams out there. Anytime you hear anything with a sense of urgency,
Yeah,
you can pretty much
beware.
represent with a scam. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
the
somebody
industry I came
tried-
from.
Somebody tried to buy airline tickets on Kuwait Airlines on our office card.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, yeah. So anyway, I mean, this is pretty easy to use. It's just we still need to learn a little bit more about how all this stuff gets in there
Sure.
and, you know, how it's tracking. So it's kind of a working process, but I think it's actually going to help our agents quite a bit if they're using it at a high level. But the big thing is the contacts in your database. If you can look at your health scores, let me see if mine's probably not very good. Actually, I don't even know if I have anybody.
I have like 99.9 on my emails,
Are you?
and everything else is bad.
Well, at least you have a way to reach out to them.
Because that was the emphasis years ago, is to make sure you had email.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
email, you know, and
Well, what they realized, they didn't realize this until about a year ago. I think Josh Team started to realize how much he's a president of the company right now, actually. But he's the technology guy that they hired like 4 years ago. When they first hired him, he spent a year like just evaluating what we had. And he told them, he said, you know, you got good stuff, but it's like the agents have to pull out a new tool every time they go to do it the next step in the process. So then he said, we really need to build like a seamless system. So then they started getting into contractual discussions with like different third-party vendors, and that's when was it Market Reader
Yeah.
got sold to Trulia, and then Trulia got sold bought out by Zillow.
So, yeah.
And then they were starting to realize we're putting our agents' information into the hands of our arch enemy. So, so then they said, all right, we're not doing that anymore. We're just gonna. They started hiring these data processor, data people.
You built your own.
Yeah, they got like 300 people in their data processing department now, and they just decided to build our own. And then they bought a company. I can't remember the name of it. They bought a company that to store all the data, all the data and everything that our agents are going to be generating.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually bought the company, and then they found out that with that purchase, they got all of Berkshire Hathaway's contact data.
Wow.
Yeah. Then they offered to sell it back to Berkshire, not the company, but the data, their data. They offered to sell it back to them for cost, like whatever it cost us to buy it. They just and they never got back to them. Wow.
So what are we doing with it?
I don't know anything with it yet, from what I understand. But yeah, so that's kind of it's.
I bought a company with big data in it, and it was another company's information.
Yeah, they were storing. I think they bought it as kind of like our storage facility, for all the data. But with it,
Big data.
came all the data was already in there from a bunch of other companies, including Berkshire Hathaway. So, so the nice thing about it is, like, if you put your data in, you're sharing it with Keller Williams, but it's not going anyplace else. Whereas with Zillow, and who knows what they're doing, all that stuff that's in Zillow. I mean, they had a contract that said they weren't supposed to do anything with it, but,
Yeah.
But, so anyway, we're gonna be doing more and more like workshops and stuff to help people get their business plans in place. But the trick is, the things you need to know really are how much money you want to make, what your average sales price or commission is. And if you can try to gauge, kind of get a handle on what you think your conversion rates are. But there's some that are already plugged in there that if you want to just play around with what they have in there, that's your prerogative. But as the year goes on, then we're probably going to do like either, I don't know if monthly might be too frequent, although agents should be looking at their stuff monthly. But we'll be doing regular workshops to help the people that join us set theirs up, but also try to help the agents that are using this to, learn their business and help them adjust their business as they need to. So I forgot the things.
No, you're good.
Oh, where does that go, Punta Gorda?
It goes everywhere.
I think they're zooming out today. There's some people in Sebring that were going to be.
Oh, that's
today.
Yes.
I'm forgetting about those
I
guys.
forgot about you guys. I wonder if they have any questions.
So far, Maggie says she needs help with terminology at some point.
Terminology.
That's what she said, yeah.
Do you know what she means by that?
No. Maggie, if you have any specific things, please let us know. Specific questions. That's the word I'm looking for.
I think probably a lot of people are confused about the activities and the leads and the contacts, but we kind of beat that up pretty good, I think, didn't we?
Yeah.
Basically what it comes down to is the contact's a two-way communication. The lead's just, somebody mentioning to you that they might want to buy or sell, or somebody giving you a referral for somebody that they think might want to buy or sell. And I think you're back. What's that? I think you're back. I think I'm back.
Well, a lead is somebody who is a contact that is going to be buying or selling in the next
Did I say that backwards?
60 days. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, a lead's just somebody that says that a contact's, you're having a two-way communication about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because you can mark a contact as a lead.
Okay.
So it's like the next step from contact.
That's not the way this thing's built though. Did you see this?
Click on a... Yeah.
Let's go through this whole thing. You kidding me? Okay.
It is so, yeah, they're on differently.
They go from
Yeah.
activities to leads to
You
contacts.
mouse
Yeah.
over leads right there. Yeah.
That's weird because in command, that's why I did all this and I didn't even pay
People
attention.
have shown interest.
Yeah, interest in the service, but haven't engaged in the conversation.
Yeah,
Because you can mark a contact as a lead when you put in a contact.
that would make sense, yeah.
So that's why that's
What you're
confusing to
saying.
me. Because I did all this and I didn't even notice that.
That is interesting that you're saying that, because that does make more sense, right?
Two-way conversations.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Because a contact could be,
Like I had talked to a guy this weekend who was like, yeah, my mom's selling her house. And I was like, okay, wait. He's like, I don't know, next, year or so. And I was like, great, let me get your information. He's in as a contact, but I didn't mark him as a lead until I know that we're going to be definitely
his
talking
house
to
or his mom's house.
his mom's house. He's the one, it's under his name, but she lives there.
No, it's interesting you say that, because yeah, we think the people we put in there as contacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And see if you can convert them to a lead. So I don't know why they,
And if an ISA, like that's how an ISA would talk too, would say they put in the contacts and stay in contact.
Yeah.
When they become a lead, they send them over to an agent.
Interesting, because I would consider a lead just, like we're saying, flies in over the transom. I got somebody's name and phone number, and so I try to reach out to them. It's almost like there's something missing between contact and appointment, and that would be maybe a prospect, where somebody has,
well, that's a
you
good
talk
point.
to somebody
Yes.
and they say, yeah, I'm interested in selling, but not really right now.
Yeah.
And so you elevate them from a contact to a prospect.
Yeah,
So you would think it would be contact, lead, prospect.
right, something like
Yeah.
that.
No, that's a good, maybe we'll have to send them an email, and ask them.
Well, another way to think of it too is if like I did a Bold 100, I made 100 contacts, but I got like 8 leads. You know what I mean? Because there are actually 8 people who are interested in buying or selling
Right.
in the next so much time. Like that's
So I think your
when our
100
language is.
your 100 contacts would be an activity
Yeah.
in this world,
Right,
and then the people that showed any interest
would be,
would be a lead, and
And
then
then
if you
once-
engaged in a two-way conversation,
right.
they'd be a contact. But I see what you're saying. It was-
Well, the activity, I mean, I called 600 people, but I got 100 people I actually spoke to. So you see what I'm saying? That's where there is, because when we talk about
Yeah.
a contact in bold, that's they always say it's somebody you have a two-way conversation
Right.
or attempt to have a two-way conversation about real estate with.
Yeah.
So I just walk in and like,
all good.
I was just coming to make sure it was still recording. So I realized I had walked away for too
Yeah, I
long.
think in that case, the Bold 100, your activities are 600,
Mm-hmm.
your leads are 100,
See, I would
but
think that
because you had a face-to-face with all of those people, all 100 have become contacts.
Well, I found
And
this
then the
contacts that
six
they
of-
say they want to keep in touch, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And then a lead is if they want to keep in touch. And no, it's a contact is if I talk to them about real estate, like if I did it about an open house, I talk to them and say, hey, I'm doing an open house. Who do you know looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in your area? And they'd say, nobody, go away. I tried, they didn't want to talk to me.
Right.
Thank you. That's a contact. Oh, yes, I am interested, or my sister's interested, or my neighbor's interested. Great. Let me send you my information. What's yours? That's also a contact. My sister Sue is actually looking to buy. Here's her information. That's one contact. Talking to Sue is another one, and it's a lead. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of how you divide it up. At least that's what they were told. That's what Jay Mancuso, Pat Mancuso. That's my third one. Pat Mancuso and John Prescott had told us in bold.
yeah.
I think by definition, if you look at the second line and has established a value-based relationship with that
Uh-huh.
be prospect.
That would sound like
Somebody would then be
Right.
like your
a lead that's been converted, somebody you had a two-way conversation with, and is a prospect.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of that second.
Yeah, I think it's like you said,
Yeah.
like they're missing a step. There's like another type that's not in there that
I
should
think
be.
you're tying contacts.
Who are
and
these
prospects
idiots?
together.
Put this thing together.
Let's go back to Zillow.
But yeah, no, that is a little confusing, so we'll have to,
And it sounds like it's definitely subject to interpretation.
yeah.
But you know what? In a sense, it doesn't really matter that we're all on exactly the same page
Right.
in terms of terminology. Just as long as we're within our own business, we're consistent.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to consider the contacts, prospects, and then they come from the leads, and then the leads come from your contacts.
Mhm.
Right.
That's a way of looking at it. But yeah, they might need to clean that up a little bit, because it does seem a little bit, like you said, kind of seems like there's a missing step.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying too that, this conversion rate on activities, they have 3% in there. But when I did the business planning clinic, what they told us in the business planning clinic was that the reason why Bold uses 100 contacts a week is because for every 50 contacts, you should get an appointment. I never knew that. So that's where the 100 contacts comes from. So another way of looking at it is you could say, okay, if my goal is to get 2 appointments a week, and kind of go from there. You could figure out what you make if you could just do two contacts a week or 2 appointments a week.
Well, and that's one that people always struggle with too, is what's an appointment. Because like that's Bold. I don't know if you were or pay much attention to the Bold Facebook page, but there was a huge thing because this lady's like, I made 100 contacts in 35 minutes, and all of us were like, no, you didn't. And it was like, what did you do exactly? And she's like, I handed out a bag with my face on it and a card to everybody who walked into a farmer's market. We're like, that's not a contact. Slow down. It took me 13 hours to do my last one, So that, it's what you're counting does matter in that, in that context. And the same thing with appointments. People are like, well, I went and looked at 15 FSBOs this week. It's like, were any of them looking to sell with an agent? No. Well, that's not really what we're talking about when we say
That's an
listing
activity.
appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's not a qualified appointment.
Right, exactly, and that's the difference.
Yeah. But they used to say, back in the old days, I think they used to say in order for it to count as a contact, I think you had to have some way of getting back in touch with them. You know, have a phone number
Yeah,
and
face
email
to
address.
face or voice to voice with contact info.
Yeah. So this might need a little tweaking, but I still think it's a really good tool.
Mhm.
And I think if we kind of embrace it, I think it's going to help us all stay more focused on our businesses. And the other thing is too, with the expenses, this will eventually, I'm sure, have I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I suspect there's going to be a built-in like bookkeeping feature to this at some point, I would think. But right now, you need to probably have QuickBooks or something like that to monitor your business expenses. And then we have this thing where you should be playing red light, green light, on your business expenses, like if you're paying for leads, and after a couple of months you aren't getting any quality leads, just cut your losses and move on to something else. And then some of this stuff here, this 411 and 135, this is really good exercise to go through to figure out. Most agents make the mistake of trying to do too many different types of activities at the same time, whereas you should really pick your top 3 or 4 or 5 maybe that you should try to master and really get at a high level with them and get results from them before you kind of go off into the woods and other stuff that might not generate the same results.
Mhm.
So if you looked at all the activities you did over the past year and saw that maybe open houses and FSBOs and expireds maybe are your top 3, and then you were buying leads from HUD or something like that, and found, as I did, that most of those people were looking for unrealistically cheap houses. And a year later, I'm still paying the monthly fee because it's coming out of my checking account automatically. Learned the hard way, because of course, back then I thought, well, geez, if I just get one deal out of this, it'll pay for the whole year. Well, that deal never came. So I should have been able to cut it off like after 3 or 6 months, and I wasn't paying attention because I wasn't watching my money. So
Need to be like Nancy Weber. When people call her, she says, "I'm sorry, I'm on a financial diet, and you're not on it."
that's the easiest way to cut them off, right? So it is after 2, so I don't want to keep you guys too long, but does anybody have any questions about any of this?
Fair, a lot of work.
Good. Yeah. I mean,
If you guys like
everybody
the GPS and the 411, when I first came, they were like, "Oh yeah, here's all these great trackers for you," and I was so overwhelmed with it. The onething.com is the One Thing podcast website. They have videos that break it down step by step. I have so much clarity on how I'm supposed to hit my goals, and I didn't have that last year. I was so mad when I was looking at what I've done for this year in October, and I was like, why didn't I go as far as I thought I was going to go, and I thought everybody thought I was going to go. And it's because I really didn't have that clarity and that step by step. I have these in the front of my schedule for next year, like I've been doing them weekly, and it's really changed like my clarity's power. Like it's totally different once you really understand how they work in tandem and how to use them. I really, really recommend them.
Well, not just for your business either, right?
Yeah, no, for your life,
Personal.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Is this my GPS a product of the onething.com, or is it a Keller Williams product?
Well, One Thing is a Keller Williams product as well.
Okay, got it.
So Jeff Woods was hired by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan to run the One Thing department. He's the CEO for that, COO.
Things a book that Gary Keller
Yeah.
and Jay Papasan wrote.
And they made a whole program based just on that because it was just so life changing.
Okay.
But yeah, the podcasts are amazing. I love them. Actually, I hate to say this, but I like them better than the Think Like a CEO podcasts. Don't tell Gary.
So the GPS is to try to identify your top 3 priorities to help grow your business, and then build strategies on them. So like with, if one of your priorities was going to be, you were going to use open houses to build your business, you want to start